Hi, everybody. My name is Miles Ward, and this is Cloud and Clear. It's a little conversation we have about what's happening in public cloud, how Google is making paths forward, what's happening in technology, and frankly, how much computing can we compute? And I have exactly the right guy for you to talk to about that. Josh, how about you introduce yourself? Say howdy to everybody.
Absolutely. Thank you, Miles. So, hey, everybody, I'm Josh Hilliker. I work at Intel Corporation. Been here almost 27 years, and during that time, have gone from IT, which I'm very proud of having my IT stripes for two different tours in IT. Worked in the data center. I worked in manufacturing on a certain technology. Acquire companies. Kicked off a couple of client products. One of them called Intel vPro Technology that's out in the market. Absolute vPro rocks, and I still love vPro. And then working, the last decade in the data center, even deeper. And I used to run a DMZ and a data center when I was back in IT, but over the last decade, it's been really kind of double clicking in on my passion, which is around telemetry and around infrastructure modernization. And what's great is it just had a natural draw to the cloud of, okay, well, that's great on prem. What can I do in the cloud and what's possible in the cloud? And that brought me into this career of going into be a cloud solution architect. So certified on Google, certified on AWS, Docker, and of course our cloud use certifications. So I'm a cloud solution architect, a senior cloud solution architect, also a senior director, and I manage our Americas cloud CSAs across the Americas, as well as I just got my Intel principal engineer title for my work and passion on telemetry. So, and what's great is a lot of it, kind of gets you right into that mindset of what's possible in the cloud and what really matters.
Yeah, no, that's incredible background. Like the work that you're doing and that I think you're helping Intel do is just hypercritical to our customers. Very happy to hear that you've passed your architecture certification. I wrote a few of the questions on that test, so happy to be plugging in with somebody that's of like mind. The I've been a huge fan of Intel's contributions in this area as they are such a massive part of what public cloud actually is in practice. Help me with like, the starting points. Where should people be thinking about, how Intel is working together with the cloud providers, certainly with Google, to take companies forward faster, right? What's next?
No, great question. What's interesting is that, I talk to people about the cloud and the first response, partners and customers like, yeah, you guys are Intel, you're not in the cloud. I'm like, well, well, I'm like, hey, hold on a second. I'm like, wait a sec. So 83% of the instances are powered by Intel. I'm like, so let's rewind that back again. I'm like, so you're actually operating mostly on Intel architecture in the cloud. So we're very relevant of like, okay, why are we here? Now, I mean, okay, so I'll give you a couple of the other kind of exciting points for me. Okay. One is that the ecosystem. You just can't say enough about the ecosystem. So software, I don't care if it's open source, it's ISV, we're all over it. And there's some numbers. I'll just throw out some number magic, right? It's like, like 700 industry partners in our commercial ISVs, right, that we're working with. And this is usually what we're seeing there is like, decades of work. And then if we get into open source, we've got like 650 open source projects we're actively engaged on. So there's kind of the Biden numbers view. But what's cool is when you double click into it, it is absolutely about optimization. And this has been the fun part when I talk to customers and the industry is people are like, well, optimize what? What does that mean? And it's like, oh, let me tell you. Like sometimes it's socket optimization, sometimes it's code optimization, sometimes it's like a library we get added. And so as you kind of click through and understand more about that, it's like, man, we are very relevant. Like and so I like to tell people, okay, we got this ecosystem. It's super awesome. Yes, if you're doing enterprise apps, SAP HANA is an example. We've been over it for a couple decades working within optimizations. And what's great is, gosh, it was probably about 6 months ago, I had an opportunity to meet with the folks in Germany that did the optimizations, and they're going through the last decade plus of optimizations, and I'm like, feed me. You're literally feeding me like, oh my gosh, like if you just so some people, if you hear customers say, well, I'm just going to do SAP HANA, it's like, do you know what's underneath all that? Do you know what you're getting and don't realize you're getting, and that on the right platform it rocks, right? So let me keep going. Two last points on this is that we are absolutely going after cloud optimization tools, both investment, and I got some interesting new news to share in a little bit about something that it already hit the wire, so I'm not going to get in trouble for this. But there's I don't want to get I don't want to be a CSA for hire yet. No, I'm just kidding. But there's an announcement there. The other thing that was intriguing is, I've been here a long time, as we talked about, having Pat Gelsinger come back to Intel.
I've talked to a bunch of Intel folks. They're losing their minds about the level of impact he's having. I'm super excited about it.
This is like a new Unreal Engine just hit for gaming. This is like epic. Like, oh my gosh, what? Like, and so when he came back, he brought back this concept of this torrid pace. Period. Like everything's torrid pace. So it's like the meetings we're in with them are like, how can we do more in software? How can we do better? How can we do more in cloud? We talked to him about what we're doing in cloud, and he's like, double it. You're like, yeah, total torrid. So torrid is like, we laugh that we'll get torrid shirts and say torrid on them, right? And wear it when we meet with him, but it's like he literally has this torrid pace. So that's the why.
Our customers need that, right? I think it's hard. It's easy to look at the growth rate of cloud and the financial performance of, like, you want to do numbers, right? 53% faster revenue growth for companies that use cloud versus companies that don't, right? So it's like, it's unambiguous. Of course, this is the better way to operate. But when you're there, I think I hear back from customers all the time. They're like, I want to get better. I want my systems to be more efficient or higher performance. I want the experience of customers to improve. I want to be able to better manage data. But they want to know, like, what's the most immediate, most positive next step. And I think they have this instinct that that's going to come from like radical software changes on their side, or like crazy re-architecture of their internal systems. And I we keep waving like it's probably about just sort of getting your app tuned for the processors that it runs on. Like, pro tip, right? It's a big ass slice of your cost. It's a big driver of the sort of overall effect. Maybe you start there. Pro tip, right?
Yeah, total pro tip. It's like you put it into cloud and you let it go is not the answer, right? It's like you got to do care and feeding, right? So you're absolutely right. It's like funny. It's like, well, man, we got this other offer to go to this other architecture, and I'm thinking about it. You're like, have you even played with what you have? Have you even looked at what you're doing? Have you looked at the optimization? What is your cloud density? Like, what are you really doing? And they're like, I don't know. And you're like, okay, let's just like, let's be content with what you have for a millisecond. Let me show you what you got, and then let me show you a path, right? Because we're seeing some wicked cool paths I'll share in a minute here about, going N1 to N2, right? It's like easy lift. Oh my gosh, performance, right?
I run a whole team of technical account managers and customer success managers. We're talking to customers all the time. And like right in the middle is, you go through and just look at the instances that they're running, right? It's a huge slice of their bill. What laptops do your developers work on? They go, I get them the brand newest stuff because they've got to be very efficient. I'm like, you are on computers from 6 years ago, my man. Let's upgrade, right? Like, I think that stuff just becomes invisible in some ways when you don't have your sort of fingers and toes on the individual hardware pieces. And so it takes a little reminder, it takes a little prompt. And I think very often there are places in cloud where so much of the management now moves to the cloud provider, right? Like, sort of glorious. If I'm running on Spanner, I probably don't need a storage DBA because that's sort of Google's job to do. But you still absolutely need people that are thinking through the infrastructure building blocks that you do have access to, right? And the instances in compute is a core part of that.
We have this cool role inside IT that I got more vetted on here the last 2 years. That's called cloud broker. And it's someone basically mining your shop, right? They're there making sure, what are you doing? How you doing it? Did you know? And by the way, I'm going to protect you before you even hurt yourself. And this team is like, they're so cool. I went out and hired like 3 of them out of the team to work for me. Because I'm like, okay, I love you guys smacking me. I need you to work for me now. Like, I need you to be on the team and tell customers, how do you manage the shop? How do you keep your eye on it? So you're totally right. It's like, do you want to use 7-8-year-old computer hardware in your virtual data center called the cloud? Or do you want to pay attention? No ding, but it's just like, let me open up the book and show you what page to go to, let's do this.
So this is the reason, like I sit on a board of a group called the FinOps Foundation. It's part of the Linux Software Foundation. And so what we see a lot of time, right, which is great, right? And we now staff a team of basically accountants, because it's one thing for me to go to an engineer and go, hey, you would save a buck or two if you sort of poke the right buttons and set this up in a way that is efficient. And they go, right, but is it like one or two? Because I have a bunch of other opportunities where I'm going to save, or where I'm going to earn new revenues, or the rest I got to prioritize. So unless I have the ability to explicitly describe the positive effect they are about to get, they won't do that work. So I cut loose the accountants and actually compute it for them and say, like, it will be 21.62% savings on your bill. That means this many hours of your staff is actually a productive use of time. That, like, it feels like spoon feeding sometimes, but if that's what gets people to a place where they're operating in the best practices way, in a way that is most efficient for them, I think it's time well spent. And if that's the contribution that Sada can make, I think we're happy to do it. It has definitely affected customers. I know there's been a bunch of joint projects that we've done together as a part of this Intel collaboration program for optimization. Can you talk a little about like vtune and some of the stuff we're doing on compute to make it so that folks go faster?
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Thank you. And real quick, it's like instead of unleash the Kraken, it's unleash the
Sure. Yeah.
FinOps.
Oh yeah.
Right? It's like
Yeah.
unleash the
And they
FinOps.
go,
And then they
yeah, yeah. My man Robin dives in there
okay.
with his like jujitsu spreadsheets and just causes grave havoc. It's beautiful.
Absolutely. It's so great. All right. So what, yeah. So how the partnership with Sada, right, is so great, right? And I'm not just saying that, but it is. I've been working with Sada throughout each of the different milestones and different projects we've been working on, and my team has. And let me talk a little bit about kind of the partnership, and then talk a little about the cool tools, because you immediately brought vtune, and immediately I want to go down to vtune. You got me. Like, I
Yeah.
want to talk about
Yeah.
vtune for a long time. So give me a moment. I'm gonna
Okay.
come back to vtune.
I
It
know I was
is
teasing. I was like,
epic.
ooh,
I'm gonna
delicious.
share with you, but in the beginning days with Sada, it was our kind of awareness that Sada is one of the largest, if not the largest, partner with Google for Google Compute Engine services. So it just makes sense. It's like, well, kind of a duh. Like, okay, yeah, we should be working with Sada, and that was the beauty early on, is we started to provide kind of how are we doing cloud benchmarking. And again, another area where customers are kind of they're not listening to this stuff yet, or they haven't really thought of this yet, is I can benchmark in the cloud. Well, I've been benchmarking on prem for years. I use spec in of the past. I use spec JBB. But I do it in the cloud, and it's like, well, yeah, absolutely. So that was one of our early engagements. Like, let's show you how we do benchmarking in the cloud. Let's get some synergy there for different workloads, and that worked out really well, because then you could again start to have the conversation with the customer on unleash the FinOps, say, look, the benchmark says you're going to get a better price or best performance for price. Wouldn't you want to do that?
Well,
Right?
and it's just
So
moving from like I can put up case study after case study after case study, right? Like I got we have this sort of like checklist. I have customers that have saved 20 or 30 or 40 or 50 or 60, and I have a customer that's done 70. I need an 80 still. I'm working to get the like full rainbow of percentage discounts in the case studies that we've got. But like all of those sound like great news if you're the CFO trying to figure out how to shave cost out of the thing. But they want to go, right, but I know how much it costs me to get at that advantage. Which is it 20 or is it 60, right? Like help me understand what it actually works out to, so that the specificity unlocks the action. And I'm violent agreement about how often I saw IT departments take responsibility over benchmarking and sort of proving out the purchase decision. I think that stuff made sense when you were buying for 3 years or 5 years or something. And when you have this, like, there's this freedom that comes from like, oh, I can turn the instance off in the next second. So if I make a bad decision, it's okay. I'll do a better one, which means you literally never evaluate ever again. You just sort of forget about it. And then that's why you never get this moment where it's like, oh, it's probably a good idea for us to make a thoughtful choice here. So we use PerfCap Benchmarker a lot as the way to like fan out across a bunch of workloads and get a real like coherent view of which instances are faster for the diverse workloads that most of our customers run.
exactly. I mean, PKB is money in my eyes. Let me talk a little bit about tooling before I talk about tech. And by the way, we've been working on a number of customers with you guys. I know we've got some case studies we could sprinkle throughout of savings and what have you. And those numbers we'll talk about in a moment. But let's talk about some of the tools for a moment. one of the, oh boy. So if you look at the optimization discussion, there's pieces around application characterization. There's pieces around what's happening at the PID level, right? Let's get deep for a minute. So if I want to look at the PID level and see what's happening, and I want to characterize the application to see where I'm finding latencies or where I'm finding bottlenecks, we have a great range of tools. So if you start at the base, and this is part of my exciting news, is that in Google, the question becomes is, can I see specific information to help me on that application characterization? And the answer is yes. So we had an announcement here in the last little bit here that we are acquiring a company called Granulate. And
Dun, dun,
that's exciting
dun.
news. Yes, there's a total press release out there, but we've been working on it for the last couple of years, right? And they've got a tool called G Profiler. And I'm not here to like sell tools, but I'll tell you what, when I see a telemetry tool show me evidence of what's happening in all of the, IaaS instances on Google, that gets me super excited. And that's exactly what G Profiler does. It uses ptrace to look at the PID level and give you it gives you a flame graph of where are you seeing latencies and problems, so you know what exactly to optimize, what to change, and then you could also say, you're not using AVX 512. You didn't. You're on the wrong instance. So you have these gotchas. Now, when we go from that to, I'd say, kind of the G Profiler helps me do the application characterization. Now I want to go get nth degree. I go to vtune. And vtune, how it works on vtune, this is kind of a fun learning, I'll call it, is that we take that workload, we replicate it onto an on-prem box, we run vtune to get the deep PMUs, which are performance monitoring units, which are the counters. And then from there, we spit out the same kind of flame graphs, and it gives us exact location of where the latency and the problem is. So are you back inbound? Are you front inbound? What line of code? Are you calling a library ahead of when are you calling it too late, so it's doing too much store and that's causing latency? Like, where in the code? And that's, like, when we get to that point, it to me is the most exciting, because you can really pinpoint down, and then as they take that workload back onto the cloud and then scale it, they're seeing that win everywhere. So that's kind of now we've got more tools, and I know I want to talk a little bit about Intel technologies for a moment, but let me finish out tools and I'll come back to tech. We realized again, this is all in the last 2 years of great, I'd say, introspective at Intel of going, wow. And to be blunt, we're not as relevant in the cloud as we need to be. How do we fix that? And so we've been public about, like, well, hey, Intel's back, baby. Like, we're in there, like 83%. Come on now. And so we've gone out and grabbed cloud optimizer tool partnerships with folks like Densify. And we've kind of given them here's what optimization means. Here's what configuration means. Here's what you could do when you're doing a validation of recommendation engine and help, things. So I look at that saying, huge move forward on what are we doing? How do you do that to look at cost and save cost? So just super excited about that. Now, if you continue on, yes, we've got more. We've got a whole one API that's got, if you double click on one API, it has all of these, like a foundation and then a couple of buckets of code. So you've got in there is vtune, actually VPP, vtune profiler, platform profiler is in there. And you got, of course, more libraries and what have you. Just super excited. Now, I give a big pat on the back to Pat, no pun intended, but his drive on one API, his drive on making sure we're doing more there in software is what I see as really kind of why it's like that torrid pace of, okay, do more.
Yeah. So I think that there's a lot where, you have this inbuilt advantage where if you are already such a huge fraction of the compute that gets consumed, applications that are being designed in cloud are inherently being tested in Intel environments, right? Like, that's what's available there. That's what people are using. And I think, the move to more containerized applications is setting people up to start to, frankly, to attend to performance more. The companies that we see that still run just bare virtual machines, right? It seems like I remember proposing virtual machines as a crazy idea to companies, and then now it's like, that's the old guard legacy thing. Why would you ever do such a thing? Right? Like, which is just nuts, right? That transition, I think you are also earning, as a result of the containerization platforms, Kubernetes, Anthos, those kinds of building blocks, a whole other layer of performance telemetry and basically like behaviors from the application that spawn from that kind of performance result. So you can make changes in the configuration of software, which build version you're using, the other kinds of building blocks that tie into the appropriate instructions that are available on the Intel side, and see the performance now. See it in a sub, do the testing of that to not have that one machine that has the one IP with it. If you change it, you're going to take downtime. And so you don't have this operational risk that goes along with earning the performance benefit, where I think in kind of VM land that felt more prevalent, or at least harder to work around. What other kinds of like workloads make sense for this? What other places that folks should hear the alarm bell? I should probably pay attention if I'm running something like this.
Good question. I can't wait to come back to your virtual machine comment, because I lived through that translation too, of like,
That's
VMs,
impossible.
no
You
one's
can't
doing
run
it.
production on VM.
Okay.
What are you talking
And
about?
then,
Yeah. Mhm.
yeah, yeah. And now it's like, nah. So, all right, let's talk about workloads. So what type of workloads, kind of what's in Google, right? And what kind of workloads, and what should be like kind of those application triggers you should be going, oh, so first off, let's talk about standard, right? We got Ice Lake. Okay, so yeah, I'm getting a little bit sorry about that. I'm getting a little platformish. Ice Lake's our latest third generation Intel Xeon scalable processors. I know, but it's Ice Lake. Okay, so Ice Lake is in N2 now, right? So it's like, so okay, what are you doing? Web apps, medium large databases, right? And that's all that N2 general purpose. But again, we finally have well, not finally, it's probably about, we have Ice Lake in there. So it's like, okay, so if you are on N1, you should be thinking N2. And hopefully you're paying attention that you know you have N1 to then
Yeah,
flag
I mean
yourself that you should be
that,
going
like
to
that's just
N2.
a no-brainer update of performance and efficiency. So many like people go like, I don't know, I put that in the calculator and it looks like it costs more. I was like, right, but do you run more than one VM? They go, yeah, yes, and I go, well, great, you're going to run fewer. I promise, right? Like that's how the cloud works. You get to use less gear for more throughput if you're on faster gear. And they're like, oh, well, that is better. Okay, I like it. Let's do it. It's hard because you got so many issues that companies have to work through, right? Like they're in the middle of hiring and figuring out a dev pipeline and which feature should I put in my product again? And oh God, how do we market this thing, right? So, in the grand stack rank of which opportunities are going to pay the biggest dividends for their attention, I think it's easy to go like, well, if I'm in cloud, I'm already ahead of the curve. So forget it. If it's cloud, it's good. Which, hey, I agree too, but there is a second step. I think we're always trying to set up with customers, yes, there is a first step where you can get to sort of sane operational profile, or a rational security standard, or you've got a development pipeline that isn't totally nuts. But there's always that sort of second step of refinement and optimization, and really getting what you came for, right? Actually getting at the benefits of these platforms.
Just care and feed. Just please care and feed. Right. So, all right. So we continue down like apps. What I'd say is that you've got your compute optimized, of course, right? So this is where you get into gaming, right? So if you're doing kind of gaming, you should be looking at what is going on in C2. M is when we get real fun, right? So the M class, because it's exciting to me, of in-memory database. Whoa, right? So if I'm doing value key pair, right? I'm doing SAP HANA, right? I'm doing in-memory
Single
analytics.
store,
It's like, oh, here we
ScyllaDB,
go, right? It's like,
Cassandra,
yeah,
Yugabyte,
yeah,
Cockroach, all that stuff.
yeah. Speed, response, latency. I mean, everything is like, if it's in memory, guess what? It's going to be a lot faster. Yeah. So there's that. Then we get into, of course, VMware Engine, and I love when I talk to customers around VMware. And they're like, yeah, we have VMware. We're thinking of going to the cloud. I'm like, dude, let's go. Like, let's set it up and let's start migrating. Let's make this happen, okay? And then of course bare metal. And being a data center guy, being a hardware guy, I love bare metal, of course, right? But it's what's right for the app you're using, what's right for the workload you're using. What do you need it to do? Are you going to layer stuff like SAP HANA on it? Okay, right, cool. Or do you want to use a service? Like what do you want? So it's like, I look at, yeah. So you got, the databases, the key enterprise workloads, the hey, I'm gonna do bare metal, or I'm just gonna literally go to VMware Engine, right?
Yeah,
I'm gonna use that. And
yeah. So there's a bunch of you have the upside opportunities that a more modern infrastructure presents, and you have the the terror coming from the other direction of, I still have this boat anchor of a crunchy data center that I don't like, and none of the ISVs have anywhere near the R&D budget to make this stuff any better. They're all that dollars is now being spent by the big cloud providers, right? It is pretty, like, I've built a bunch of startups. I love venture capital backed companies. I love the fire of that work. It is hard to compete against $100 billion a year in R&D across the three cloud providers, right? That's more than your venture round, my friends. It's big bucks. So that kind of it creates this gravitational pull of new capabilities and features, which is one of the big reasons I think cloud is so exciting. And with Intel at the center of that, there's a lot of like kind of future features that are coming, right? We talked a lot about compute, but there's also all the stuff that's going to happen in networking and storage from you guys. That I think is really breaking gear too. And many folks, like, those both get to the kind of the IT areas that folks feel like they're going to get past when they go to cloud. Yay, I don't have to fight with networking. That's Google's problem anymore. I'm like, well, you probably have like a little bit of optimization there too, my friend.
There's always room for optimization. That's the world that I am fully in. Because I've met with, as I was doing my on-prem work with customers, we go in there and we look at their compute density on-prem. And then as I shifted and really, kind of took that knowledge and went into the cloud, it's like, okay, we got to look at cloud density. There's always a room. There's always a play for what else could I do and what's easy. Now, some of the, I got to share this with you just a little bit more of around open source, because I think it's great, is that we've been partnering with Google, that as we find things like modifications like TensorFlow, we've been working to upstream it. So by default, when you get it, it's already optimized. And that's so cool. It's like, and that, by the way, that's, I think that should be a industry expectation, is you are doing the R&D you talked about, you are doing the development, and I'm getting that natural benefit. But I think it's important, as I tell customers, is, look, you need to think about that you're getting that, and knowing what your hardware is underneath. Not, I work at Intel, and yeah, we're a hardware, silicon provider, and we do software, but I think it's important to go, hey, these optimizations that are native now, that have been upstreamed, work better on IA, and they work better on these instances. Like, that's just, so I think that's the kind of the beauty of working with Google, is that
it is exactly the kind of work that an individual customer will always do worse than your ability to do it in aggregate across all the customers. And so when they have evidence that, wow, this part of the provider ecosystem, is focused on our actual needs, is working upstream from us, so I don't have to pay attention and learn the extra bit and poke the extra buttons, it's just better. The easy button is a valuable button. And I think there's a lot where being able to select Intel as your default outcome, because you have confidence in the level of upstream work that they're doing to make all this stuff efficient, is a giant sort of reduction in complexity. We definitely want everybody to test these things and race them and hold everybody accountable and push the performance expectations forward. But it's to make things go faster is an investment, right? And it's really powerful to watch just how much of an investment Intel is making, and lovely to hear that it's redoubled under Pat Gelsinger. That's an incredible improvement.
Yeah. Well, what I think is great, and I've seen this with our partnership, right, with Sada, is that the cloud optimization program has been great. Well, let me use a different word. It's been money. I guess money for the customer, right? Is that as we partner on things, we've been seeing, okay, hey, 30% better on Ice Lake with their workload, and the customers go, boom, because you're right. If I could do more, then I need less, and therefore I can actually expand my business faster, which is all about time to market, new services, what I do. So that's why, as we've been collaborating on that program and working with customers and kind of doing that trifecta with them of SADA powerhouse with Google, Intel powerhouse, and kind of triangulating with the customer, it's been phenomenal. The CSAs, and including myself, the CSAs on my team, myself, have been like just giddy as we're seeing customers are getting excited about it and starting to ask the right questions. Like, well, what else should I be thinking about? Yeah, welcome. So one thing you said, I'm gonna fast or rewind and then fast forward, like this, is that Future tech, what's coming? I know you dropped that carrot out there, so I'm gonna take it. And this really ties into my passion and why I went after PE on telemetry is that infrastructure to me matters, right? And getting full use of out of your infrastructure is important to me. And that means what am I watching for telemetry? What are the decisions I'm making? What is the automation? So we look at the modern autonomous cloud where it operates by itself and it knows what to do. What if we could make that better? And that's where the infrastructure processing unit IPU comes in. Yeah. So and you probably heard about this, but I'll just give you the kind of the quick version is that if I can offload all of the kind of the core function of the server onto another, IPU and then have all the CPUs available for workload, wouldn't that be
Yeah,
great?
yeah, especially for the kind of performance optimization that you're talking about, because you don't have this sort of internal overhead associated with the virtualization layer or the container layer or these other building blocks. I mean, Google's stack for this stuff is very unique. Having worked at Amazon and having installed a bunch of shit in the Microsoft data centers, like Google's stuff is a little space alien and awesome. And there are huge benefits, like shit that does not make sense. So, like, you can do some benchmarks right now on Cloud Run, which is container hosted infrastructure managed on the Google side, and the containerized one runs faster than the virtualized one. And you're going like, isn't there like another layer of abstraction in there? I don't get it. How is that possible, right? You're like, well, it's stuff like the IPU. It's manipulations in the back end to further accelerate the processing of these workloads, where Google gets to bring all of the tools that Intel makes available and the rest of their infrastructure system makes available to accelerate workloads. That's, if we can make it so that the most efficient environment for developers is the highest performance environment for the workload, that's like it's just a complete game change in terms of the productivity of our customers. That's just huge.
If I look at where we're going with the IPU, right, with Google, right, and how we're going to offload, make it better performance, right. I also take a step into what they talked about, what Google engineers talked about at our Intel On event back, like what, gosh, last year, where Samantha Alt, one of my partners in the business unit, and Google talked about their work they're doing in telemetry at that extremely deep level of MSRs and the PMUs and how they're using it to help even the automation of it. So to kind of shore up on your comment on that kind of sick, awesome alien stuff that's happening, right? You kind of unpack that and go, oh, I see what you guys are doing. So the level of like sophistication of how they're doing management, of how they do provisioning, how they are working on getting the most amount out of it, and then you now add IPU to it. You're like, this is a phenomenal environment that's going to be perform very well for us. So now, one last thing, I'll say this, but I can't. Or I'm gonna plant the seed, and I'm gonna walk away from this. Is that our next generation Xeon is coming? It's called Sapphire Rapids. I'll let Google announce when it's coming because I can't do that. I was actually told last night, do not talk about that. Don't talk about when. And so, but SPR, right? Sapphire Rapids is another like kind of a blah. Like okay, so I've been through all the transitions, right? We go Haswell to Broadwell to Skylake to Cascade Lake to Ice Lake, and it's like you start looking, you're like you start these monumental shifts in performance, monumental shifts in technology, and SPR is not going to disappoint. So I'll let Google announce when they're going to get it. You'll probably hear before I will because you guys are such a big partner with Google.
There's a lot in that too that's not just about kind of the workloads we've been talking about, right? Data processing, databases, large application hosting, the rest. I think there's a big push from the Intel folks from what we're watching to grab the ML workloads and grab, because we're watching, it's one of the, if you want to talk about like people that don't do the care and feeding, right? Like that aren't doing the evaluation. They kind of hear this is how you're supposed to set it up, and this is where the instructions have been written. So I'm going to sort of run it that way. The diversity of actual workloads in ML pipelines is huge, right? Like some stuff is just terrible on some devices, and some like the difference is enormous. So we're right now benchmarking for those kinds of workloads I think is increasingly difficult. It's even more nuanced. There's more places where, because companies are running really different kinds of patterns, like this group is doing a bunch of linear regression, these folks are doing large model inference, these folks are doing super tiny model predictions and categorizations, like large memory footprint requirement, large memory throughput requirement, right? All those sort of different balancing acts mean that that's one of the spots where you really need to test. And I think there are magic bits and bytes in the middle of Sapphire Rapids that I think will have an effect there.
Yeah, I mean, just are you doing genomics or not? Right? Are you doing NLP or not? What are you doing it for your chat bot? Like, what is it for? How much data? How are you running it? And then what library and feature are you actually going to apply? So yeah, no, it's interesting that one of the CSAs in my domain created this. If you do this, you will see this. And of course, we got to be careful on how we articulate it, because you can't do additive math when you
your
try to like
mileage
say,
may
well, 10
vary
plus
a
10
little.
plus 20. But you see like kind of this depth of, but it's like you look at it and go, okay, if I just do this simple mod of this specific library, I get this out of it. And you're right. It's a very boutique nature of current ML, right? Of like, what am I using? What model? How is it working? And there's still way to like be aware of what's out there, right? So you can see things where you flip the library, you get the extension that you don't have, right? AVX, right? You look at the VNNI, right? It's like each one of those has a, you got to look at what's the kernel. And so it's interesting when I get into those AI conversations with the AI team and a customer, we start repping on, okay, what version are you using? What model, what version, where'd you get it? What's this? And it's like, okay, we'll do this, and now look at your performance.
Well, look, Josh, I super appreciate you creating and helping us get access to more ingredients for the meals on that menu. We are really motivated about making a positive impact in the performance of the customers that we serve, and this is a key way of us doing that. Thank you for taking time walking through some of the building blocks. Are there like specific spots folks can go to learn more? Maybe some websites they should check out?
Yeah, absolutely. So a couple things. Intel.com/cloud, absolute money. I mean, I know it sounds like nah, but it's money. That's one. There's also /cloud performance. And this is where it's like, hoo ha ha, because it'll give you by workload, by Google, and you can look at performance with the recipe. And then let me give you the last one. Last one's gonna be a little bit hard because I'm gonna have to send it to you because it's got no sure you're on this. The Xeon tuning guide. Okay. Now, okay. Two things. When I first saw that Intel did this, and it was about 9 months ago, I was like, about time. Like, thank you. So we did two things. We gave an open source database tuning guide with all flags and commands. We gave a open source Java tuning guide. Okay. Now it's a long URL, so I'm gonna have to probably send it to you. But this is like as someone that does infrastructure as code, someone that's deeply studying for my Terraform HashiCorp test right now, and a firm believer of Terraform, right? Knowing that configuration where I can put into my IAC code is so important, right? And so we're like giving you the recipe. Like InnoDB, it's like 20 flags that you can do to immediately speed up your database, whether you're using Postgres on top, using MySQL on top of it. It's an InnoDB base, right? And it's like, well, duh. Like, but it's like we're giving it away. Like, here you go. Like, we're not holding back anything on what's going to make it faster to run. So those are kind of the three places: cloud performance, and then now the last piece is the DevOps toolkit. So if you are a DevOpser, right, and you care about that, we do have a DevOps toolkit that's out there where we give certain things, some under NDA. So yeah, I know, but a lot of it's not. So, but the stuff it's not it's on GitHub. We have that posted. It's again in that cloud area. You should go to the cloud and you go down to DevOps, and we have like all the links to like Granulate. And I got to give one last plug. I know we're getting close on time, Miles, but one last plug. I talked about gprofiler with Granulate, which is that application characterization. The beautiful thing is gagent. And gagent speeds up between the application and the kernel level, and it works on Google. So it looks for instructions like Java workloads, Node.js, and it starts to kind of look at the pattern, and it accelerates the pattern. And I'll tell you what, it's been money, like 20, 30, 40. I haven't seen the 80% yet. Okay. When I find an 80%, I'm calling you, but you keep seeing these accelerations of workload and you're like, this is unbelievable. So I had the guys in the lab tested a couple of years ago so I could believe it. And I saw it and I was like, all right, I'm a firm believer. I get it. You guys cracked the code on this. And therefore we had the announcement that just came out. So if those are for like, if you want to look for like, okay, hey, it's time to do some care and feeding. It's like pick up the phone, get Grantley as part of our Sada Intel collaboration, right? And let's talk about it and show it.
That's a big part of the TAM and CSM function. They are happy to walk you through these tools, help get everybody access, and make it so that your workload screen. That's what they're here to do.
And if you don't trust, just read a couple of the things, see how it works. Dude, G Profiler is on GitHub. So if you're like, nah, this is hokey pokey, download G Profiler, run it. It'll tell you that this is a good candidate, and here's how much you're going to save. And you just like, take my money.
Josh, I really appreciate it. Thank you for taking all the time.
You bet. Thanks, Miles. Thanks for the opportunity.
And everybody in the audience, thank you so much. Cheers. Talk soon.
Thank you for listening to Cloud and Clear. Check the show notes for links to this week's topics. And don't forget to connect with us on Twitter @Cloud and Clear and our website, sada.com. Be sure to rate and review the show on your favorite podcast app.